Hello, my name is Reverend Bonnie Rose, and I'm your host for this episode of Our Ventura TV. Today, it's my pleasure to speak with Reverend Heidi Alfrey, who is one of our local ministers. She's actually the minister of Unity of Ventura. So, Heidi, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Reverend Bonnie. It's so wonderful to talk about spirituality and how it is that it's happening over at Unity of Ventura.
Yes, yes,
Our word is unity. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about what the beliefs are over at Unity.
right. Well, the word unity in itself is a beautiful word and a beautiful concept. So I'll tell you about our core principles, but I love the word. I love being called unity because I think we're constantly looking at who do we call other and
Mhm.
how do we grow in a sense of oneness, which is what the word unity would refer to. So, so unity is one of the new thought churches. And what the idea is, in the late 1800s, our founders studied the transcendentalists, the Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, the people that started a different kind of thought that God, and perhaps the God from the Old Testament, was more of an outer God. Sometimes people said it felt like a dysfunctional parent, but one that you might have to change for this God to like you. And the thinking around this new thought was that divinity is within us. We all carry a spark of divinity, and that it is outside of us because it's in everyone. But the way to know oneself and the way to be on a spiritual path and allow your spiritual gifts to come forward is to focus within, to listen within, and to have a sense of spiritual self-esteem. So our founders were Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. Charles studied all the religions of the world to see the similarity. And what he found is that the similarity was love. And
Mm.
that people of faith, there is a sense of something bigger than their mortal self. There's a sense of lifting, what we call consciousness, but sort of recognizing it's not me against the world, that I am maybe in the world, but not of the world, as Jesus taught us. And how do we live this message? How do we really see ourselves not so much as begging a God, but that living from the source of God within?
Yes.
And Myrtle, his wife, it just I know it's a long little, it's a bit of a story for the core values, is that she really was about her own healing. She had an illness that she was told she inherited from her family, and she heard an affirmative statement in the way we actually use prayer, that something that was true about her, the wellness in her.
Mm.
And the wording was, I am a child of God, and therefore I don't inherit sickness. And
Wow.
she had a lifting affirmative thought that my biological family might have this, but my spiritual family, which is this entire world and universe, has a greater sense of wellness. And she meditated and she prayed and she sat with that and she healed herself.
Oh,
And
that's
so the yes.
yeah, yeah. So that brings me to the next question, which is how do some of your participants benefit from being part of Unity?
Beautiful. So our values and how people benefit are, there's some beautiful pieces of this, is that prayer is affirmative and not manipulative, that healing comes from within,
Hmm?
that we need our spiritual community to feel supported, that silence and meditation are the keys to having inner clarity, to inclusivity and diversity are essential for knowing that we are one, and that spiritual education is happening everywhere all the time. Every relationship, we learn more about how am I showing up as, we could, if when what we call it Christ consciousness, as those bracelets used to say, what would Jesus do? How do we really live in the sense of what would love do? What would Jesus do? How do we show up as this representative of God that we really are?
Mm.
And so people really find, it's absolutely, people that come to Unity find, they often will say, where have you been all my life? I didn't know you all were existed, because we're not one of the traditional faiths. And in fact, we can be added to a traditional faith. But people find a sense of prayer being very user friendly, and a feeling of, I always say, spiritual self-esteem,
Mhm.
that often people have found themselves feeling separate from God rather than one with it.
Yes, yes. Well, that's Thank you for that. Now, do you find that there's any particular benefit that you can notice in terms of the community at large, like Ventura County?
Well, absolutely. We see certainly people coming in. People tend to find unity later in their life, a little bit later, let's say their 30s and their 40s, when they're going through things that are maybe not what they expected, maybe a divorce or an illness or a job ending. And so what I see is that people that come find a sense of alignment with who they are. I am going to do what I love to do. I am going to learn to communicate. I am going to learn to pray in a way that I feel enlivened. And so I see absolutely our community is a place for that healing to happen. But then we go out in the world and we're part of, I think we're going to be in August, part of the Pride celebration for the Diversity Collective. And we are constantly looking for ways to bring that sense of oneness and, sort of enthusiasm, celebration of self to wherever we go.
Oh, thank you. So, can anyone visit your church, or do they need to make an appointment, or do they need to call you first? How does that work?
Beautiful. Well, you certainly do not need, you are there by divine appointment, as we would say. But, but we're actually, this group has been around a long time, but they've been renting the facility. I say they because I started in October, but it's really lovely. But we are now meeting in the Seventh-day Adventist Church, which is at 6300 Telephone Road, but we're meeting in their chapel because their Sabbath is on Saturday. And it almost feels a little more unity because we're a church in a church, but we're a meeting in their chapel, and it's at 10 a.m. on Sundays, and it's a beautiful chapel. And then afterward we have a fellowship time, but anybody can come, and I find that a lot of people come with their friends. Yes. And people again will say, I haven't felt this sense of being able to relax in something called a church. In fact, we call it more of a spiritual community.
Okay, thank you. And see, is there anything else that you feel is important to share with us? And then we'll wrap it up.
Well, absolutely. I just in my this sense of also pursuing the things you love. We have a wonderful band on Sundays, great music. So that inspires people. We have people that will start kind of moving around, and we really invite people to explore that spirit within, and to a lot of us sort of have this idea of who we want to be, and then this way we sort of act. So I hope everybody accepts me, rather than the way we really can be loved is to let people know who we are as individuals. And it's so we invite a lot of growth or spirit or changing or authenticity. And I find people will be very surprised at just how interesting each person is. And also, I'm going to be teaching a class. In fact, I'm teaching it on the I'm going to teach it over at the Center for Spiritual Living in the house there. But it's going to be the power of prayer, and it's going to be 8 weeks in August. Okay. And we're talking again about prayer can be very confusing for people. And how do we get together and create prayer that feels that it's authentic and your own, and that God is your pal. Right. And God is within, and God is everywhere. And we just move out of a limited to an unlimited.
So people can find out more about your church and where it is and your class. What is your website?
Very good. Thank you, Bonnie. Me and my marketing skills. Yes, it's Unity of Ventura.org. Everything's there. We also have a prayer request that if people want prayer support, they can email, and our prayer team gets back to them. And so it's an interactive website. Unity's sort of tagline says that we are a positive path for spiritual living. And so it's a very open experience, and people sort of find what they need. And I find that it's never a place where people leave feeling offended or judged, and that's a good place for us to experience in this world where we all tend to put labels on ourselves and each other. And so it's a very refreshing, deep drink of spirit when you come to Unity.
Well, thank you so much, Heidi. We're almost out of time. So I just want to say to our viewers, thank you so much for watching today. And I'm Reverend Bonnie Rose for Our Ventura TV. And until next time, have a beautiful day. Thank you very much.